Thank you so much for coming out. I'm Bianca. I'm the digital marketing manager for Botsociety. I actually have an interesting history as I opened the San Francisco version of our office about a year ago. So it's been really, really exciting to see the way the industry has been growing and just evolving, and I'm really, really excited to be here with you guys today. So, voice UX. What is voice UX? Why is this a thing? Why is it important, and why are we excited about it? Well, there are lots of new interesting devices popping up everywhere. There's all of these different forms of Alexa, all of these different forms of the Google Assistant, and brands have to discover the best way to use these. And it's not really hard, it's not really easy to come up with this stuff off the top of your head. And the way things are working right now, developers are the ones that are doing the designing. And so how many of you have an Alexa or a Google Home at your house, or you've interacted with one of these devices? It's a pretty great number of you guys. And so why this is so important and why everyone is so excited about this is because developers are coding right now, and developers are not the most creative people. And so if you interacted with one of these devices and you tried to talk to a brand, it probably sounded super robotic. You probably were like, what is this, and why is this happening this way? This is unnatural. I no longer want to talk to this assistant. I'm just going to use Messenger. It's easier, it understands me, and I feel safe in talking to it. It's really weird to talk to these devices in public. So if you have one at your desk or if you have one in the office, a lot of times people don't want to interact with them because it's awkward. They feel weird. They feel weird talking to things. And there are ways that we can ease these worries, both for developers and designers, as well as users of the actual devices. What we do at Botsociety is we're working on a mission to reintroduce creatives into this process of AI and chatbots and voice assistants because it's necessary. There are a million different ways that people can ask things via voice and via that medium, and we really want to make sure that we account for all of those different ways. And there's also a limit to the information that we can present in a voice user interface. So an example of that is something like, okay, well, I want to ask Alexa or my Google Home, how can I order some pizza? Or what can I order from my local restaurant? So I'll say, hey Google, let me talk to Pizza Hut. And so now I'm talking to the Pizza Hut bot and I'm interacting with this voice assistant, but I have a problem. I can't solve something because I don't know what's on the menu. I don't know what Pizza Hut has to offer me. So I can say, hey Pizza Hut, what's on your menu? And they can read me a very long list of examples of different types of crust and different types of tomato sauce and different types of things that's not valuable for me. And so we're really, really pushing for the rise of multimodal experiences, which are basically the combination of a display as well as a voice experience. What we do at Botsociety is we allow user experience designers to come in and kind of really work with these different principles. They can add messages, they can add context, they can add different paths and flows that the conversation may take for everything that a user may say. So for everything that a user says, a designer can think, okay, this is how this user might go to this screen, and this is how this user might navigate through this action. We need to account for those. And at the time, developers are doing it and they're not doing a great job. So with that, I'm gonna leave you guys. And now I want to introduce our CEO, Vittorio Banfi. He's gonna come up and speak a bit about what's happening, what to expect, and why people are so confused. I'll let him take it away.
Thank you, Bianca. Can we have an applause for Bianca? All right, so I'm Vittorio Banfi. I'm also the owner of one of the most complex Twitter handles in the world. There's a lot of doubles there. Anyway, so very briefly about Botsociety, since Bianca already introduced it. I'll just go through a couple of slides here. It's a conversation design tool. So it's like Adobe Photoshop, but for voice. You can add messages, instantly preview, and then export it to building tools that your engineering team will use. And you can share it with your team and get feedback, which is one of the complex things, right? Because voice UX, the difficult thing is that you don't have screens, and so it's difficult to visualize it. So far, more than 2 million messages have been collectively designed on Botsociety. We also have an educational program with more than 70 universities enrolled and 1,000 students in total, a bunch of Ivy Leagues as well. Our investors include Google, 500 startups and others, and we're very proud of our customers. Anyway, end of the intro, Bianca already talked about this. Today I wanted to talk about this idea that conversation design today is like web design in 1996. Okay, and so why 1996? So to arrive to that point, I wanted to do a very, very brief history of human-computer interfaces. Very brief. So the first human-computer interface is the command line. If you ever used it, it's very daunting. You need to type exactly the command that you want. You need to remember everything. There's a lot of cognitive load, right? This is the first, the command line. Second is the graphical user interfaces, right? 1984, the Macintosh is introduced, it popularizes it. And basically the main interaction is now you have a point and click device, whether it's your fingers or a mouse, and you manipulate graphical elements, right? You use that on both the phone and the computer. Now, note that parts of the interaction are still similar to the command line. So for example, if you have a search box, you need to remember what you're looking for. But the main interaction is the graphical user interface. So now we're seeing the growth of conversational interfaces, where the main interaction is the conversation. So in this example of Google Home Alone commercial here, you see that he's eating ice cream, he's talking with the device. Even though the device has a screen, it's not even looking at it, or it's looking at it as a secondary experience, I would say. The primary experience is the conversation. So we will retain some elements of the graphical user interface paradigm, but the main interaction is the conversational, is the conversation that you're having. And this, happens regardless of the device. So you can start with a dedicated device, switch to your phone, whatever. The main conversation is with an agent. Okay, so why 1996? So this is the idea. So even though we started to work on graphical user interfaces since a lot of time, then 1996 came along, and this was one of the first websites. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's the Space Jam website, right? Amazing. Took 20 minutes to download. The background is pretty hard in your eyes. Like if you take a look at it, it's like, my God, okay. And this is a menu. Like this thing, like this is a menu item, this is another menu, this is a menu, all right? Very beautiful, very difficult to use. And so why did we do very complex to use website, even though we started to work on graphical user interfaces a long time before? And when I say difficult to use, I mean it also in a business way. So for example, it took some time to figure out that even though the buy button had the same feature, if you put a buy button on the bottom left side, which is yellow, less people would buy it compared to a green button on the bottom right side. Okay. So why was still this bad? Why this? And the answer is that we started in 1996 a collective journey of users and designers. That's the way I think about it. Which means there were enough people using the internet collectively, and the designers were able to iterate fast enough so that the web design got better sensibly after 1996, right? So we got better a lot faster because you needed users to use it a lot and give feedback to the design community. The design community iterates. Okay, it's like a global sandbox, right? It's like a global sandbox of design where collectively users and designers come up with the best interface. So what about conversation interfaces? It's very interesting. It's not only about the number of devices that are active right now, even though we're in, I think the latest figure is I think it's like 13 million devices active, something like this, probably more, 100 millions. But the point is, we didn't start to work on conversation interfaces now. Like this, ELIZA is one of the first ones, it's 1966. So we started to work a lot of time ago about these things. But the point is, if you use Siri, I bet you can tell it's kind of like the 1996 of these kind of interfaces. It's clunky, sometimes your head hurts, right? And we still don't know all the best practices. And so we still don't have this kind of like yellow button on the bottom left side for conversations yet. We still don't know exactly what works and what not. We have some ideas. I can share one with you so we have an idea what that means. So for example, let's say that you're building a voice assistant to book a flight, okay? This is the question that you're designing. This is one of the things that you in voice UX, you design questions. And so here, the agents say, I can help you buy plane tickets, where would you like to go? This is actually a bad design, okay? And it's a bad design for a number of reasons, but the first one is that people will start to say stuff like, I want to go see grandma, I want to go home. And actually this, like, unless you have that kind of information, which will be creepy by the way, then that won't work, right? So a better design, it's this one. So you add a phrase that says popular destinations from San Francisco include New York and Los Angeles. And so this is a better design for two reasons. The first one is that it's setting expectations. Okay, so I understand I can put a city there. I need to put a city. But secondly, and it's even more important, it tells the user that the agent knows that you're in San Francisco. So I'm building trust here. I'm telling you, I know where you're starting from, which is one of the things that may worry me when I'm, trying to tell you I would like to buy a plane ticket. I'm worried in my head, which information do you have on me, basically, both in a good and a bad way. Okay, so this is a better design. This is just an idea. You have a bunch of other stuff that you can do on voice UX, but the point is, this is early days. So we have some ideas, but we still don't know what the best practices around there. But we are reaching now a tipping point where we have all these millions of devices sold and active, especially in the US, but globally actually. And I think what's more interesting is the recent survey that Adobe put out a couple of weeks ago, which showed that 77% of the users use their smart speaker once or more a day. So we're reaching a tipping point where the amount of users which are using these devices and these interfaces is allowing us to start this collective journey of users and designers in a way that is unprecedented. So the difficult thing there and the challenge for the design community, I think, is that these interfaces are fundamentally different compared to graphical interfaces in that they're very difficult to visualize because a conversation is not the same as screens. And so we're very proud of building these kind of tools to enable the design community to have a dedicated tool in the same way that when you use Sketch, you have a dedicated tool for web design. You should have a dedicated tool for conversation design. And this is just a preview, but I think it gives you the idea. And those are some of the ideas that I know that we didn't work on yet and that are really exciting. And stuff that you can put your creativity in and see what happens, basically. One of them is personality. Like I didn't see yet a very grumpy assistant, for example, which would be hilarious, okay? Or like the depressed bot from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? It would be great. People would interact with it a lot. In the same Adobe survey, it turned out that 25% of the time that the people talk with the smart speaker, they do it just to have a chat. They do it just to talk, to ask silly questions. And basically what they're doing is they're exploring the personality of somebody, which makes sense. Like if you want to have a relationship with somebody, you try to get to know them, right? Another thing that we didn't explore yet is context. So how much can the assistant figure out stuff based on context and just give you back the answer or give you a new service or stuff like this? Or context in the sense of it's in your home or in your car, what can we do with something like this? And generally, I think we didn't see yet very cool new experiences, apart from games, I think, which is fun because it's similar to what happened with the mobile devices, with the smartphones, where the first new things were all games, and we're like, oh, okay, so the smartphone is all about games, and then no, it was not about games. Right? But it was like the quickest thing to do, the quickest new experience you can come up with. Yeah, so I'm very excited about these three things: personality, context, and new experiences. And I'm very excited about this global new sandbox that we're all, able to use right now and participate in. That's it. We're also hiring here in the San Francisco office. We're hiring a junior product manager and a junior UX content writer. Yeah, thank you.
So if anyone has any questions now, I can bring the mic to you.
So I think it's interesting what you're saying about cognitive load of using these different types of interfaces. Like, for me, the cognitive load of a CLI is not actually that high. I'm an engineer, so I'm used to the process. But like, I'll type in the command, and it will give me a help text. Hopefully the help text will have an example of what I need to do, and I can just get going. Otherwise, I'll probably just Google like, how do I do something with something, and I'll find an answer on Stack Overflow, and I'll find the exact command I need. So I find for bots, like that's the thing that's missing. It's like, how do I get Alexa to order me a pizza? Like, what words do I say? And it's like, I don't want to have like a back and forth for 10 minutes to get to know the personality, because like it's hard coded. Like there's a happy path where I can say like 3 commands and find out like what is the Pizza Hut thing. And like, to me, that's like what's missing. It's like, what's the man page of, you know, voice user interface? And you know, it's all well and good to talk about put the green button on the left versus the green button on the right, but like, what's like, yeah, do you have any sort of insight into like what would like a more structured future for voice user interface look like?
Yes, great question, by the way. So I agree with you that a lot of, especially Alexa, a lot of the times feels like a command line interface. So that's why you want the match page, I think, which is the manual for folks who are not engineers, like a manual that you can see and take a look at all the commands that are possible on a command line. Very fun. And, and I agree with you, Alexa feels like that a lot. And the reason is that unless you say specifically one of the commands that you would like, it just says, oh, like that doesn't work out. And that's not very natural, that's not how a conversation should be. So in these examples, like I like a little bit more the Google Assistant where you can ask general things and it will redirect you to different folks. So in the pizza example, it will be something like, I would like to eat a pizza, and the Google Assistant understands the knowledge around the pizza concept. And it will say something like, okay, you can now talk with Pizza Hut. You want to start talking. And then it switches personality, and the Pizza Hut, since it's a domain-specific experience, it will say something like, and that's one of the first questions, like where would you like to go? You can say destinations like this. And I'm confident that the Amazon team is catching up and making this more general, because I agree with you that right now a lot of the times it's just like exact command or that's it, and it's a discovery issue, and I agree with that. Another way of looking at it is that it's a design problem. So like, you need to design, and I agree with you on that, you need to design a conversation which is natural enough so that it doesn't feel clunky. Because if it's clunky, then people will not use it. In the same way that, by the way, when they launched this interface, this one, nobody was using this. Everybody was like, I cannot use this, like, the mouse is clunky, I cannot go around this, I'll just use the command line. Yeah. And they kept using the command line for 10 years, so it's not like this happened overnight, right? Yeah, 10 years. Yeah. And so, I agree with you on that, and I think that validates the idea that we're like here. So we start to see something that works, and we start to see something that doesn't work. I hope I answered the question.
I think we have another one here. Very quick. Do you have a demo?
Yes, but not in this presentation. I have it inside me all the time.
In this area?
Yes.
Is there any way to access that?
Yes, so I think the quickest thing is that you just go to botsociety.io and you can sign up for free and try it out yourself. Or we can sit down together and I can show you, but I found out that playing around is one of the things that like designers usually would like want to do. And for the first 30 messages and the first design, it's free, so you can just play around with it indefinitely. Great question, by the way. I like that question.
Does the fact that a lot more or more and more devices nowadays have kind of a GUI component attached to voice feedback, so now it's not only voice but also visual feedback, does that impact the scope of the challenges you're trying to solve for?
Yes. Great question. So I think one of the devices you're referring to, I'll just put up this slide so we know what we're talking about, is this one, right? So like you have a voice-activated device who also happens to have a screen. And I really like this picture because it shows how you should design for it. So like this guy is looking at the TV, is eating the ice cream, he cannot touch the touch screen, you cannot see it unless it turns like this, right? And so basically what happens when you start to add surfaces and screens is that you start to design experiences which have as primary component the conversation, and then the graphical part is a secondary experience that you design but you take into consideration that the user may not see it. In the same way that when you design a graphical user interface, it's the other way around. So like you design the graphical part and then you assume the user is not turning up the volume. And so you put subtitles on Instagram videos and stuff like that, right? And so this is challenging in the sense that, first of all, there is this switch that you need to do is like the contrary of what you're used to. So I agree that there's a new challenge. And then the second one is that this agent that has the screen should be consistent with the other one that you design for devices that do not have a screen. So let's say that you're designing the Daily Show agent, then the Daily Show agent here should show Daily Show clips. But then if you use the same agent on like a device without a screen, then what happens? Like you need to design that as well.
Any other questions?
So going back to your pizza kind of experiment and talking about like landing on a page and having personality brought into those pages like branding, right?
Yeah.
What have you seen that's like been very interesting to you, or have you seen anything that's been very interesting that's been like very brand driven personality wise? You know, that's it's something interesting to me, like how if I land on pizza is going to be different from landing on Selma's Pizza or whatnot.
So that's a great question. So two things at sea. So the first one is on the corporate level. For example, the assistants, which are chat-based one, not voice, but I've seen from an insurance company. It was very, it was building a lot of trust, explaining a lot of things, and giving you the sensation that everything is under control. And I had the fortune of working a little bit with them, and they showed me the brand guidelines for the personality that they built around it, and they basically took the brand book and transferred that into a persona, like a physical persona, which, and so that influences the phrases that you use, the lexicon, and this type of things. And you don't really understand that, but you feel that, like, in the same way that when you talk with a good, like, insurance agent, then it makes you feel like everything will be right, basically. So I've seen that happen. So basically, take the brand book without like inventing new things in terms of brand values, but just transferring that to this new medium, which is really fun, actually. And the second example is a startup, and it's a game. The game is called Yes Sire, and it's a game where it's basically an adventure game. So you're a sire in the medieval age, and they ask you questions like, do you want to kill the peasants? And then if you say yes, and then it's wrong, then you die or you go on, stuff like that. It's very fun. It's the most played game on Alexa. And the way that they have built it is that they took a professional speaker from the UK, which has this very deep voice and like UK accent and stuff like that. And they changed all the lexicon around this, so it's really immersive. So they came up with a totally new experience, which is, it's very important for the game. Like the game would not have been successful without that kind of thing. So it's more an integral part of the success rather than just following brand guidelines. If that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's kind of like what you said. I love what you said about the happy path method of getting there. But like for me, I don't want that. I want like the very much like ask 10 questions and like get 10 answers. That inevitably will bring me to that happy path. But I want to feel like I have that ability.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in the intersection of like this voice UX and kind of cultural and personal things like that. So you're talking about people wanting to get to know whatever you're talking to, getting to know the personality. And I'm wondering, like 10, 15 years, where do you see this going? Because in my mind, I'm thinking like, machine learning, I'm really talkative and I use, like a lot. And so if I have a device that is very succinct with their words and I'm trying to get to know that personality, is there a possibility that like that device could kind of adapt to whoever's interacting with it and kind of enhance the experience that way, or just kind of adapt to cultural tips as well? Is that something that you see as like valuable or possible?
So I'm thinking because the conversation, to be natural, is full of these things. And
Exactly,
so
yeah.
I agree with that. So for example, when you're talking with somebody, you're adjusting to how this person is communicating with you back.
Yeah.
And so the biggest, for example, I'm just making, because 15 years, like in the future is a lot, so I'm making an example.
I might be
like,
totally off too with that time frame.
But I think it's an interesting question. But the first example I'm going to make is like 15 days, and then we can go on. So, for example, something that it's a problem now, and Amazon has solved it. For example, is that when you're talking with me, you're naturally adjusting your level of voice, like to my level of voice. Otherwise, it looks like you're being very aggressive with me. And the smart speakers do not do that now. So, like, if during the night you set up the volume to maximum because you're having a party, and then the following day you go like, "What time is it?" and it screams, and you're like, "What? Are you angry with me?" Right? That's the natural reaction you have. And so, one of the things that, for example, we should do is like start to adjust the level of voice of noise. And so, I expect this to go on, and I agree with you that I don't see this in 15 years. I think just 5 years.
Yeah.
The smart speakers will be able to say this is a more talkative person, will be more verbal, and somebody who's more fast, then I'll just be very functional in the same way that you do that in the office with colleagues, I assume. And so then that's another challenge for designers, because like how do you keep the brand consistent with these different tiers?
Yeah.
But I see definitely happening. I actually already seen something like this happen already with customer tiers. So like if you are a customer that has a lot of customer support tickets or not, then the agent behaves differently.
They get like nicer if you have more.
Well, they try to be more operative and like go faster, instead of explaining all the process, because you're already been through a lot of times, stuff like that. So that's already happening, and then on the consumer side, like based on the personality, yes, definitely.
A little bit more complex, kind of where she was going. I'm seeing more, how is this going to be, I'm trying to figure out how it would work. Since there's no demo. So in an AR environment where I do have different personalities, so how I engage with one person is going to be one way, how I engage with another person is going to be completely different.
Right.
And if I'm in an environment, whether it's in the store for AR or for whatever reason, how is the person that's going to be developing this going to work? Is that going to be on database? Is that going to be done within the product?
Okay. So we don't have an AR product yet. So I don't discuss future products, but it's definitely in the mission of our company. So basically what we're going to do, now I'm talking specifically about Botsociety. What we're going to do is we're going to build a suite of creative tools for non-graphical interfaces. So at the moment, the most interesting one is voice and chat, but we're eventually going to do AR as well, which I agree with you, like a bunch of universities already asked for it. What I would imagine is that you have a design phase and a building phase, right? And so in a similar way that happens when you try to come up with an Alexa skill or something like that, the designer is in charge of defining the personality, is in charge of the why, like why should you speak about, like in this way, why the personality should be this. And then you should have a tool that gives you the artifacts to imagine this, preview this stuff, share it, and then give it to engineers so that they implement it technically with the different personalities in an AR environment. How is that going to play out exactly in terms of like user experience for the designer while designing it? We're going to find out.
Thank you.
Okay, one final question here, and then we'll wrap.
Thank you. This has been really good, very interesting conversation. I was really curious about at the beginning of the presentation you were talking about some of the academic input that you've had in terms of the research and just positioning that against some of the sort of more corporate embedded research. I'm coming from an academic research background, so I guess I'm kind of like curious about, and I'm headed towards corporate. So I just want to know what are the differences between what sort of information and insights, I suppose, that you're getting out of the academic side of the research and what is kind of market driven, because I think that gets overlooked quite a lot. And I'm really curious about what comes out of purely academic and what comes out of market stuff.
Sure. Thank you for the question. It's very interesting. So, what generally speaking, what we see from the academic is more is stuff that is not strictly related to existing ecosystems, rather than building, an Alexa skill. You try to build a totally new experience on a device that does not exist, in an ecosystem that does not exist, right? Just try to do the best in theory. That's the general thing that I've seen. I can give you an example. So, a research project at NYU, they worked on a smart pillow interface. So it's a pillow that you can talk to, and that helps you sleep better. And so it's embedded in the pillow. We have a video about that. It's fun. And so basically they designed the interface with Botsociety, but we don't have a pillow preview, but all the rest is there, right? And so both the professor and like the student that is following this, and like they needed a way to imagine this kind of interaction. And then they also actually built it. So if you go on our website, there's an education page, and there's the video that we did with Tiffany. It's very interesting. But we see crazy stuff, and I wish we had time. Like we are 10 people in the company, and so 70 universities. Like each people in the company should follow 7. But we're looking forward to celebrate more of these things because they get very interesting. Yes.
Okay, I think we should give Vittorio a round of applause. I don't know if you'll be sticking around after, but maybe if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you everyone for coming. The next Beer and UX meetup will probably be the 18th of April, so hopefully if you're around, you'll come to that. And if you'd like to learn more about Neuron, we're a boutique user experience design agency, you can go to neuronux.com. Thank you everyone.